So I believe Cody Simon entered the game as they adjusted to the quarterback switch with Dexter Williams from Connor Bazelak because of the running threat. And they had a series where, Tommy Eichenberg did his usual deal where he's chasing dudes down and throwing them around. Steel Chambers had like a one-handed tackle. And I just thought, my goodness, these linebackers, they're headed up by Eichenberg. They're playing better than maybe Raekwon Millen and that crew in 16, something in that range, maybe before that.
I don't know. That's a pretty spicy take right there. But they're playing well. I mean, they're playing well, but you sit there and you look at some of the linebackers they've had with Raekwon McMillan, Jerome Baker, et cetera, and Jerome Baker has developed into quite the NFL linebacker. I had the misfortune of watching Browns Dolphins and watch Jerome Baker go out there and make some plays. But I guess back to the main point. I mean, it's funny because coming out of last season, what is the biggest liability on this defense? And everybody would have said linebacker. It was they were too slow. They took the bad angles. They just it wasn't the right guys. I mean, obviously a bunch of misses at recruiting. Where's Deshaun McCullough? I mean, what? And now, I mean, it's probably the most consistent group out there if you just sit there and take it at the 3 levels and you sit there and say, D-line, linebacker, secondary. Eichenberg, it has really gone from somebody that, just kind of seemed like we're just going to have him out there in that position until we find the right guy to replace him to, I mean, nobody can supplant him at this point. So they're playing very well. I don't know if I'm willing to go to the McMillan class. McMillan was a hell of a collegiate linebacker. His NFL career hasn't really panned out the way that people had hoped, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, Raekwon McMillan, 2-time second-team All-American. I think Tommy Eichenberg is headed for first-team All-American status this year. He's getting some attention, and Ohio State being at the top of the rankings always helps. He's got 11 tackles for loss this year, which is the most for an Ohio State middle linebacker since Brian Roll had 11.5 in 2010. And so with Tommy Eichenberg's next tackle for loss, he will have the most since Matt Wilhelm in 2002 as an Ohio State middle linebacker. So that's when it's you and Matt Wilhelm and there's no James Laurinaitis or 3-time All-American James Laurinaitis, 2-time second-team All-American Raekwon McMillan. But you can also credit Jim Knowles' defense for that because they get their linebackers in the backfield a lot. If you go back and look at last year's tackles for loss for Oklahoma State, they get in there and they get aggressive. And I forget the way that Jim Knowles said it on Tuesday where the linebackers understand what the escape point or whatever that the running back is going to try to hop out at, and they meet them there and they tackle them in the backfield. And Tommy Eichenberg did that twice in that game against Indiana, and then also a third time when he just threw Dexter Williams down and said, no, you're not going anywhere.
Was Kevin coming through with a Hogan's Heroes?
No, it was from the 2002 championship game, and whoever it was Musburger just always called Matt Wilhelm the Kaiser.
Hey, speaking of 2002, today is the 20-year anniversary of Ohio State's first ever overtime game at Illinois. Crappy Illinois, 4-7, took the national champions to overtime, and it was a walk-off win for the defense. Tim Anderson knocked down the pass by John Butcher, that great Illinois Big Ten quarterback. John Butcher had his pass knocked down on 4th down in overtime, and the Buckeyes got out of Champaign with the hard-fought overtime win. You can read all about it right now at bucknuts.com.
Yeah, we listened to the end of that game sitting in the parking lot of a Max and Irma's in Polaris because my wife and I were dating at that time. We were going on a double date with my future brother-in-law and his possible girlfriend at that point. And I was with my wife and her brother, and we're like, well, we got to go so that we can meet them, and they're not waiting for us. So we sit in the parking lot the entire time because they hadn't the other girl never left. She just stayed and watched the game, until the game was over. And then she bothered to show up and meet us at Max and Aramis, and I was like just missing the game the entire time. Paul Kills did a great job on the radio call, but yeah, just sitting there listening to the game, and that entire season was it'll never be topped because it shouldn't be. You should be better than that. You shouldn't have to win every game in the fourth quarter by some sort of a miracle stop or a miracle throw. And again, it was an amazing season, but the games they don't hold up in terms of rewatching, because go try to watch the Holy Buckeye game on a random Tuesday and see if you like it.
And see if you can make it through it.
Yeah, I watched the 60-minute version of it, and I was like, and it was on BTN. I didn't have it recorded, and I'm like hitting the fast forward button. I'm like, there's only one play I care about.
Snap the ball.
Yeah.
You need the 6-minute
20
version.
minutes on that last play. Yeah, with all the different people talking about it.
BTN in 6 minutes.
Yeah, they another interesting thing, to my recollection, that was the very first time ABC had used the Eminem "Lose Yourself" as its intro music for that game. The song had just come out and was headed to #1 for a resounding 12 consecutive weeks. I looked that up today, but that was kind of a cool little thing that they threw in at the beginning, that Ohio State was on this quest. Ohio State had never been 12-0 at any point in any season previously until that day when they had to beat a team with a losing record in overtime to get to 12-0. So pretty remarkable day.
Somebody called the show just last night and was talking about Mike Sanderstill of Michigan and what he was able to do from offense to defense, defense to offense, back and forth, and said, can you think of anybody who's ever been able to do anything like that? And I said, how old are you? Look up Chris Gamble. They had no idea who Chris Gamble was. I said, then later in the show, they're like, oh, I found some Chris Gamble highlights. Good find. I'm like, yeah, that was a pretty easy response.
Well, and Mike Sanderstill only plays defense this year. Yeah. And so, and he's played very well. He might be an all Big Ten player, but yeah, Gamble did more of going both ways than Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson was a hood ornament on offense, as Urban Meyer would say, but they threw to him a couple of times. But Chris Gamble starting both ways is still one of the most remarkable things. And it's so sad because I promise you, back then in 2002, that wasn't old timey football. And it wasn't the era of the two-way players. He was a rare bird, and was certainly fun to watch. And I still remember the first time when I saw him intercept the pass against Cincinnati, and I was like, "What is he doing in there?" And then he pretty much ends up being the guy that saves the secondary for that season.
Yeah,
he was the bacon saver, as my friends refer to him. One of my buddies tweeted it out the other day. The bacon saver. That's what they refer to him as.
Yeah, he was logging like 115 plays a game. It's crazy.
He was drinking a lot of water and getting a lot of sleep. When we would ask him, like, how are you able to do this? Drinking a lot of water and getting a lot of sleep. Oh, you brought up Max and Irma's. It's sad. Most of the Max and Irma's have closed and gone by the wayside. They had the best French onion soup, and they still kept that 55 salad too. So it was doggone it. If there's any left, I need to know where they are so I can go and enjoy one last meal at the one or two that are left.
I know that they just had a sale of like all the fixtures and everything for the one that was kind of in Reynoldsburg, but they could have had the best French onion soup. I would have never known. I couldn't get past the tortilla soup, which was by far one of the best, like the best thing on their menu. I mean, that and the ice cream bar were really, I mean, there was a time when I was in college and Max and Irma's was like a special deal, and toward the end of their run, it was like, no, we can do better. We can do better.
Mark just wants to move past soup talk, guys. Look at him. He just enough with the soup.
I'm not a big soup guy. Look at chicken noodle, tomato out of the can. That's about all I get through. And when it's bitter cold, I delve into I guess I'm going to get some soup. But the French onion soup, there wasn't a time when I would, with the cheese on top. Yeah, good selection there.
One more food note. Another place that had pretty good French onion soup is Champs there at Lenox, and it's gone by the wayside. The one at Easton is gone. The one at Polaris or whatever on the north side, or it was Crosswoods, I guess, is gone. And East Lansing actually had one about a mile or two from the stadium. So for old time's sake, I went to the Champs up there, and The one that we always go to in Indianapolis, downtown, to watch the championship games is gone too. So that building is sitting empty at Easton. If anybody had, or not Easton, but Atlantic Town Center, if anybody has like $5 million that they want to piss through, I'll open a Buckeye themed sports bar right there. A softball toss from Ohio Stadium. You know, you have to walk under that underpass to get over and over the bridge to get to the stadium. But you'd think something like that might work, but I don't know. People just stopped going there. So what? COVID kind of killed it probably. But
well, that and that movie theater. I mean, if AMZ couldn't make it there, I mean, it's now like an off-brand movie theater type situation there. I mean, because people weren't going to the movies and people weren't going out to eat. And you know, Lennox used to really be a nice little setup, and it's kind of run its course. I mean, I've gone into the Staples there, I've gone into the Target there, but I couldn't really tell you much else that is over there, except for that like that healthy restaurant that I'm terrified to go into, being that it's healthy.
Yeah, I can't do that. That's the food talk for today. Oh, and wait, where are we going for dinner on Friday in Maryland, Kev?
I'm not. I don't pre-announce the stuff because we do a feature over at Buckeye Huddle with it, and I just don't. I don't put it out there. I mean, people
we'll talk about it next week.
People who want to see Hungry Huddle will have to watch our pregame show where it will debut. I believe for Maryland, we will be coming on at 9 in the morning. 9 in the morning. So expect Hungry Huddle close to the 10 o'clock hour.